Welcome to my channel. This is where you can fall asleep to horror stories. I have a very soothing voice that will lull you into a peaceful slumber while I tell you terrifying tales that will make your blood run cold. From creepypastas to urban legends, I've got it all. So if you're looking for a new way to get your heart racing before bed, then look no further. Just make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my new stories. And if you want to support me and my work, then buy me a coffee. I'll use the money to buy better audio equipment so that I can make the most immersive experience possible for you guys. So sit back, relax, and let me take you away to a world of make-believe where anything can happen and everything is designed to scare the living daylight out of you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. The Haunted Abode. Chapter 1. Arrival at the Mansion. A group of friends, Sam, Emily, Lisa, and Jake, decided to spend a night in the infamous Morton Manor, a crumbling structure perched on the edge of a dense, dark forest. The mansion had been abandoned for decades, with vines creeping over its facade and broken windows staring like lifeless eyes. Legends whispered of ghostly apparitions and sinister occurrences. Yet the friends, driven by curiosity and a taste for the supernatural, were undeterred. As they approached, the air grew colder, and an unnatural silence enveloped them. The mansion loomed, its decaying structure casting long shadows. They stepped through the creaking front door, the sound echoing through the empty halls. Dust and cobwebs clung to every surface, and the flickering lanterns they carried barely pierced the darkness. Inside, the atmosphere was even more foreboding. The musty smell of decay filled their nostrils, and the walls seemed to close in on them. As they explored the ground floor, they found old portraits of the mansion's previous residents, their eyes following the group eerily. The friends exchanged nervous glances, but their excitement overpowered their fear. They decided to set up camp in the Grand Hall, which still retained some of its former splendor, despite the layers of dust and decay. The ornate chandelier above them swayed gently, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Sam, always the adventurous one, suggested they take turns exploring different parts of the mansion to document their experiences. They agreed, each friend feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. As night fell, the mansion seemed to come alive with an unsettling energy. The wind howled through broken windows, and the creaking of the old wood echoed like distant footsteps. The friends huddled around their small fire, sharing ghost stories and nervously laughing to mask their growing unease. Chapter 2. Unearthly Whispers. That night, the group settled in the Grand Hall, setting up sleeping bags around a small fire they had built in the old fireplace. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating an unsettling ambiance. As they shared ghost stories and laughed nervously, the first strange occurrences began. Unexplained noises echoed through the halls, whispers, footsteps, and distant laughter. Emily, who had a keen sense of hearing, perked up. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice trembling. The others listened intently, but the sound seemed to fade away as quickly as they had appeared. Objects moved on their own, chairs scraping against the floor and doors slamming shut. Lisa, who was recording their adventure on her camera, captured a faint figure moving in the background. When she played it back for the group, their faces turned pale with fear. The atmosphere grew heavy with dread, each friend feeling an inexplicable chill. As the night wore on, the occurrences became more frequent and intense. Ghostly apparitions flitted through the shadows, their pale faces with hollow eyes staring at the group from mirrors and windows. Sam tried to rationalize the events, but the fear in his voice was unmistakable. "It's probably just our minds playing tricks on us," he said, but his words did little to comfort the others. The friends decided to explore the mansion in pairs, hoping to find a logical explanation for the strange occurrences. Sam and Emily ventured into the east wing, while Lisa and Jake headed to the west. As they navigated the dark labyrinthine halls, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Sam and Emily stumbled upon a locked door at the end of a narrow hallway. The door was old and weathered, with deep scratches marring its surface. As they debated whether to force it open, they heard faint whispers emanating from the other side. Emily's hand shook as she reached for the door handle, but before she could touch it, the whispers ceased and a chilling silence filled the air. Chapter 3. The Hidden Diary. The next day, determined to uncover the truth, the group decided to explore deeper into the mansion. They started with the attic, a dusty, cobweb-covered space filled with old trunks and forgotten memories. It was there that they discovered an old trunk filled with personal belongings of the mansion's last occupants. Among the items, they found a hidden diary belonging to a woman named Eliza Morton. The diary detailed the mansion's dark past, revealing a history of occult rituals, murders, and madness that had plagued the house for generations. Eliza wrote about her family's involvement in summoning malevolent spirits. Driven by a quest for power and eternal life, the rituals had gone terribly wrong, resulting in the deaths of several family members and the entrapment of their souls within the mansion. The diary's last entry was a chilling warning to anyone who dared enter the house. As they read the diary, the friends felt the mansion's grip tightening around them. The temperature dropped, and an oppressive silence fell upon them. They knew they were not alone. Emily, who had been particularly affected by the events of the previous night, felt a presence watching them. "We need to leave," she whispered, her voice trembling, but the others, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, insisted on staying. As they continued reading the diary, they learned of a hidden room in the basement where the most powerful rituals had been performed. Eliza described the room in great detail, including its location and the symbols that marked its entrance. The group knew they had to find this room to uncover the full extent of the mansion's dark secrets. Chapter 4. The Secret Room. Their search led them to the basement, a damp and foreboding space that seemed to hold the weight of the mansion's dark history. As they descended the creaking stairs, the air grew colder, and the sense of unease intensified. In the basement, they stumbled upon a hidden room, its door covered in ancient symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Inside the room, they found a makeshift altar and remnants of grisly rituals. The walls were adorned with cryptic symbols and faded photographs of the Morton family. The faces in the photographs seemed to stare at them with a malevolent intensity, their eyes following the group as they moved. Their flashlights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. As they examined the altar, they found a collection of old photographs depicting the Morton family performing the rituals. The realization that they were standing in the heart of the mansion's darkness intensified their fear. Suddenly, a deafening noise echoed through the basement, and the hidden room's door slammed shut. Panic set in as the friends tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. They were trapped, and the air grew thick with the presence of something malevolent. "We need to find another way out," Sam said, his voice shaking. The others nodded, their faces pale with fear. The group frantically searched the basement for an escape, but the walls seemed to close in on them, and the shadows grew darker. They could hear the whispers growing louder, as if the spirits were drawing closer. Emily clutched her flashlight, her knuckles white with fear. "We're not alone," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Chapter 5. The Spirit's Wrath. The malevolent spirit finally revealed itself, a ghastly apparition with empty eyes and a twisted grin. It tormented them, whispering their deepest fears and driving them to madness. Terrifying visions assaulted their minds, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. Desperate to escape, they split up, each facing their own harrowing challenges. Emily felt invisible hands clawing at her, dragging her into the shadows. She screamed for help, but her voice was swallowed by the darkness. Jake saw ghostly figures lunging at him, their hollow eyes filled with rage. He swung his flashlight wildly, trying to ward them off, but they seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. Lisa encountered a shadowy figure that seemed to drain her strength with each step. She stumbled through the dark halls, her breaths coming in short, panicked gasps. The spirit's whispers filled her mind, eroding her sanity. "It's just a nightmare," she told herself, but the terror felt all too real. Sam, determined to save his friends, tried to confront the spirit, but it was relentless. The mansion's walls seemed to close in on him, and the air grew colder with each passing moment. He could hear the others' cries for help, but he couldn't reach them. The spirit's twisted grin seemed to mock him, its empty eyes promising no escape. As the friends struggled to survive, the spirit's attacks grew more brutal. Emily was dragged into the shadows, her screams echoing through the halls. Jake, battered and bloodied, fought off the ghostly figures with every ounce of strength he had left. Lisa, weakened by the shadowy figure, collapsed to the floor, her vision fading. Chapter 6. Descent into Madness. The remaining friends, now consumed by fear and desperation, struggled to maintain their sanity. The mansion's malevolent influence grew stronger, and the lines between reality and nightmare blurred. They began to see their fallen friends as twisted, ghostly figures, their faces contorted with pain and rage. As they wandered through the endless halls, they encountered more apparitions, each more terrifying than the last. The mansion seemed to be a labyrinth of horrors, with no escape in sight. Their minds played tricks on them, and they couldn't trust their own senses. "We have to stay together," Sam said, his voice filled with determination. But the others were too far gone, their minds shattered by the horrors they had witnessed. Emily, now on the brink of madness, heard Eliza Morton's voice calling to her from the shadows. The voice promised her safety if she performed a ritual to appease the spirits. Desperate for any solution, Emily agreed, not realizing the true nature of the ritual. With trembling hands, Emily performed the ritual as instructed by the ghostly voice. She gathered the necessary items from the hidden room and followed the ancient symbols carved into the walls. As she completed the ritual, the air grew colder, and the mansion's oppressive presence intensified. The spirits seemed to grow more agitated, their whispers turning into anguished wails. The ground beneath her trembled, and the walls seemed to close in. Emily realized too late that she had been deceived. The ritual was not meant to appease the spirits, but to unleash their full wrath upon the living. The spirits' rage reached a crescendo, and the mansion seemed to come alive with malevolent energy. Emily's vision blurred, and she felt herself being dragged into the shadows. She screamed for her friends, but her voice was lost in the cacophony of ghostly wails. "I didn't mean to," she whispered, her voice trembling. But the spirits were unforgiving, their wrath consuming her. Chapter 7. The Final Stand. Sam and Jake, now the only ones left, knew they had to make a final stand. They gathered their courage and decided to face the spirit head-on. Armed with makeshift weapons and the knowledge they had gained from Eliza's diary, they ventured into the heart of the mansion. The spirit, now fully revealed, attacked them with a fury they had never experienced. The air grew colder, and the walls seemed to close in on them. The friends fought valiantly, but the spirit's power was overwhelming. "We can't give up," Sam shouted, his voice filled with determination. But Jake's resolve was waning, the fear in his eyes growing stronger. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, Sam remembered a passage from the diary about a protective amulet hidden in the mansion. Desperate, he and Jake searched frantically, finally finding the amulet hidden in a secret compartment beneath the altar. The amulet was a small, ornate piece adorned with intricate symbols and a faint, otherworldly glow. With the amulet in hand, they confronted the spirit once more. The amulet's power seemed to weaken the spirit, and for a moment, they thought they had a chance. Sam held the amulet aloft, its glow intensifying as it repelled the malevolent entity. The spirit's form wavered, its twisted grin fading as it was pushed back by the amulet's energy. Chapter 8. The Spirit's Fury. However, the spirit's rage only grew stronger. It lashed out with renewed fury, shattering windows and sending debris flying through the air. The walls of the mansion trembled, and the ground beneath them shook violently. Sam and Jake were thrown off their feet, struggling to maintain their grip on the amulet. As they fought to stand, the spirit's voice filled the air, a cacophony of anger and anguish. "You cannot defeat me!" it roared, its voice echoing through the halls. The spirit's form began to change, growing larger and more monstrous with each passing moment. Its eyes burned with a malevolent fire, and its twisted grin returned, more menacing than ever. Sam and Jake knew they had to act quickly. The amulet's power was their only hope, but they needed to find a way to use it to banish the spirit once and for all. As they searched for answers, they came across a hidden passage in Eliza's diary. It described a ritual that could be performed using the amulet, a ritual that would trap the spirit within the mansion's walls and prevent it from ever harming anyone again. Chapter 9. The Ritual of Binding. With the diary in one hand and the amulet in the other, Sam and Jake prepared to perform the ritual of binding. They gathered the necessary items from the hidden room and followed the ancient symbols carved into the walls. The air grew colder, and the mansion's oppressive presence intensified as they began the ritual. The spirits seemed to grow more agitated, their whispers turning into anguished wails. The ground beneath them trembled, and the walls seemed to close in. Sam and Jake chanted the ancient words, their voices steady despite the fear that gripped their hearts. The amulet glowed brighter, with each verse, its power resonating through the mansion. As they neared the ritual's completion, the spirit's fury reached its peak. It lashed out with a final desperate attack, its form contorting and twisting as it tried to break free. Sam and Jake stood firm, their determination unyielding as they continued the ritual. The amulet's light grew blinding, enveloping the spirit in its glow. With a final anguished scream, the spirit was drawn into the amulet, its form dissipating into the ether. The mansion fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting as the spirit was banished. Sam and Jake collapsed to the floor, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and relief. Chapter 10. Escape from the mansion. In the end, only Sam and Jake remained, bloodied and broken, but victorious. As dawn approached, they fought their way through the mansion, the memories of their fallen friends weighing heavily on their hearts. They stepped through the front door, the first rays of sunlight piercing the darkness and bathing them in a warm, comforting glow. But as they looked back, they saw the mansion watching from a window, its malevolent gaze promising that the curse was not truly broken. The chilling realization set in. No one truly escapes the haunted abode. Sam and Jake vowed to return one day and put an end to the mansion's curse once and for all. Until then, Morton Manor would remain a place of darkness and terror, its malevolent spirits waiting for their next victims.